Here on Deep Space Nine, we are not above distracting your substitute police officer with a booty call. On V'ger Please, a vile visit to Bajor. My name is Joseph.
I'm ready to talk about some Star Trek. I am your co-host, Peter.
You're cutting right to it, Peter. What are we watching this week?
Season 2, Episode 16, Shadowplay. First released February 20th, 1994, a scant 8 days ago. As we sit here in 2005, this was written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe, directed by Rob Shearer. In-universe date, 2370. This episode, a little predictable, I think.
This is like one of the more plain, mid, boilerplate Trek things I think I've seen in some time, right? Like this is like standard issue 90s Trek with this with the like the tag still on it, you know?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think the fake outs here were unintentional, specifically along the Kira Nerys plot line, which this is an A plot, B plot. A
plot, B plot, C plot. Really? You've got
Really?
Jake having to I forgot that this was the episode where it's made clear to the audience Jake is not joining Starfleet. I knew that happened. I remembered it happening, but I couldn't remember for the life of me when it happened. I'm pretty sure that happens early. It certainly happens before season 3. I thought it even happened in season 1. I just couldn't remember. And it's like buried in this very forgettable mid episode in the middle of season 2, which is makes a lot of sense as to why you'd fucking forget where it was.
It's a great place to put it because there's not a whole lot going on here.
Yeah.
The attitudes that are expressed during the A plot, especially towards the end, I was delighted by because they are such a stark contrast to attitudes that we see out of Voyager, which is a companion product to Deep Space Nine, that I can't wait to get into that.
There is a couple interesting things that happen in it. Clearly, you get some more Dominion references. You know, you start to have the development of a relationship that ends up being pretty important on the show. R.E. Kira and Vedic Bareil. But the actual substance of the show is pretty boring. And it's its greatest sin. It really did bore me while I watched it. It was hard to pay attention to, scenes of Odo talking to holograms, spoiler alert. And not anything against Rene Abenjeros, who once again demonstrates his quality as an actor, being able to basically deliver on any kind of material. Also, I found it strangely familiar, considering we watched an episode of Enterprise with Rene Abenjeros in it, where basically he's the old man from this episode.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's like, it makes you wonder if maybe he noticed, like, why am I guest starring in this episode? It's exactly like one I did, 10 years ago. What is going on? You guys ever watch your show that you make?
Yeah, that's called is, oh, well, if you love holograms so much, why don't you marry him? Well, maybe I will. And then he does. And just has a whole rehash of this plot. That is hey, you know what? Listen, you just said you forgot about this episode. Clearly Enterprise writers forgot about it.
You know what? Fair enough. Yes. Yeah, I guess if I, a super fan of Star Trek, completely forgot about essentially everything about this episode happening within this episode, but I guess I could forgive the writers for forgetting it too.
Well, let's go to my favorite part of any Star Trek episode, and it is the beginning. Because Berman Trek has this wonderful habit of using the cold opens as the opportunity to really flesh out the minor slice of life bullshit going on the ship, or in this case, the gas station, that has no bearing on any real plots, but really does God's work in fleshing out life. And since we're going to be reaching for some things to talk about because of the simplicity of this episode, I'd also like to take this opportunity to just appreciate the runabouts. You got Deep Space Nine Tarek Noor, which is this piece of Cardassian engineering that intentionally looks wildly different than anything we've ever seen as a hero structure in Berman era Star Trek, or before and after. And they do a great job making something feel alien but functional and not crazy enough that it destroys the vibe or the flow of a Federation show.
Agreed. And also, Deep Space Nine does feel Cardassian. Like, its construction feels right as a Cardassian space station.
If you had Cardassians in what would come to be the permanent Cardassian uniforms, and you had, Romulans and Klingons and whatever you said, draw a line to the appropriate space station species, I think you could say that that is a Cardassian thing. And then the showrunners balance out that alien structure with the runabout to bring you that 24th century Starfleet feel. And it's such a good looking ship, man. And they've got so many flyby shots to draw from, and they spend so much time on these runabouts that I think really drive home that it's a great craft. It brings that taste of next gen in all the right ways while growing upon it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Defiant eventually, but just as the mobility portion of the show, I really love the runabouts, and it makes me happy to see them. But on that runabout, you've got the real odd couple. And I don't think we've seen this pairing in any real capacity yet, and that's Jadzia and that's Odo. And they're
You're right. I can't remember a time these two have actually been together.
I don't know if they said more than 5 lines of dialogue prior. Like, this was coming for a long time, and they are complete opposite ends of the spectrum, because one of them is incredibly old, incredibly wise, knows themselves inside and out, knows everything there is to know about their species, and is ultimately present but detached from the obligations of office.
Agreed. That's a very good description.
Jadzia is what, number 3 on the station?
Correct.
And couldn't possibly give any less fucks about it.
Obviously.
And then you got Odo, who is a very young entity, shrouded in mysteries, and takes his duties basically as his entire lifestyle and defines himself through his work. One takes himself super serious. The other is very go with the flow. And
and most notably in their conversation, one is very wise as to how people work, and the other fundamentally does not understand people, not at least in an emotional way.
And that's, I want to contrast that further. As well as Jadzia knows people, and Odo is ignorant to the nuances, he is still able to look at them as biological organisms and read them like a book.
Yeah, he can understand their motives and as they relate to their actions.
Well, I'm saying, like, you're the twitchier, like his lie detecting abilities that they've already kind of flexed on.
But he is absolutely hopeless when it comes to anything interpersonal. Right, like he just does not have that programming whatsoever. And Jadzia has an abundance of that programming. In fact, it's probably the thing she has the most of, because she's Dax. And so she's got several lifetimes of it. And, obvious joke here, right? Like, of course they're talking about like people banging because it's Dax. She just can't not talk about that.
As far as that goes, so they're going on about station gossip. Who is the gossip here? Is it Jadzia or is it Dax?
It's Dax. Dax is a drama queen. I use queen just because I think it would be correct no matter the host of Dax. Dax is super invested in people's drama because it was a diplomat beforehand. Before that, it was the history of the Dax symbiote includes a lot of different people who have very strong interpersonal skills and have very rich social lives.
Do we get to see Jadzia prior to Dax? I know you said there's an episode in there somewhere where she kind of, you find out that she's the only one who failed the slug exam.
Not really without Dax, no. There's a lot of drama as it relates to, Trill and joining and all that stuff yet to come, but not a circumstance where you experience who Jadzia was before joining in any kind of relevant way.
That's too bad, because that's a view that I would have liked to have gotten in Ops of Rage. You got to see Mr. Nimbly before he gets Dax, and then the overwhelming confidence that comes with Dax, and like that night and day difference in presentation of the character. I'd like to see what Jadzia looked like. And I guess really in this situation, it's more fun for me to like think like maybe this young, pretty lady who was also a super serious scientist lady is actually the big gossip. And Dax is kind of like, oh, we do like this. Yes.
Right. No, that would have been fun.
Uplift your chisme here. So they're going out on a gamma quadrant science field trip for what?
So, according to the log that Jadzia gives, investigating an unusual particle field detected on the other side of the wormhole, and Odo came along because weird shit in the Gamma Quadrant makes him interested because it might tell him who he is.
Season PTO for this?
It's one of those things where it's like you kind of want to do the job, so you kind of get asked to be put on the project,
He's a security guy. He's there to catch.
Yeah, he's there to protect Dax from energy
drug
fields,
dealer. As long as there's no falling rocks. Listen, last time he went on an away team mission, not only did everybody get poison gassed, and Starfleet wastes its time schlepping around red herring monoliths, but he also got psycho activated and turned into the blob, rampaging the blob. So if every time they find something weird, that's in quotes here, in the Gamma Quadrant, he is going to be sent along, I don't know. I guess Jack Porkins back in his security office, or what do you call him? Private Pudge?
It was just Lieutenant Porkins.
Lieutenant Porkins. He's going to be getting a lot of desk time in the big seat. But he doesn't actually have to use Lieutenant Porkins because he has contracted the services of Kira Nerys, who, hot on the heels of finding out that she thwarted an active investigation by way of murdering suspects in Tarek Nor, Tarek Nor.
When it was Tarek Nor, yeah.
I don't know if I would be using her as my backup sheriff.
Listen, when the sheriff is busy, sometimes you just find the best available killer just to scare everybody, right? Like, are you my law enforcement officer of choice? Are you, bring them in for their trial and you believe in justice? Are you like me? No, but you are my best killer, and that's going to scare people into not fucking around.
That tail end of Tarek Nor has really haunted me.
Because they never really addressed it again.
It's not even that they didn't address it again. It's that Odo never directly confronts her and says, bitch, you have betrayed everyone's trust on this station, and you have gone into my active investigations, taken the evidence I've collected, and turned it into fuel for a fucking death squad to go out and kill people. Like, that's a real hard one to get around, and I guess by the fact that episode never explicitly called attention to it, you don't really have to address it, but yikes.
I guess, on one hand, they don't, what is there to say, right? Like, yes, in war, when I was a terrorist, I did terrorist shit. And I lied to you and was definitely murdering people because that's what I did then,
Yeah, okay, well, the first thing you say, since you've asked me, is, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And also, there is no war going on. Like, yeah, she killed the chemist shop owner, sure. But then the chemist shop owner had the list of other collaborators that were like his blackmail, whatever. And then the wife was shaking those guys down for money. And Kira took that list that Odo had put together in present day Ben Sisko is my boss and we have Starfleet here. And she gave those names and addresses to Bajoran provisional government death squads, and they went and killed the people that were part of Odo's active investigation. Like, that's the part I can't get around.
I don't think that was done by Kira explicitly and specifically to get them killed. In fact,
oh, come on. He says it straight out. It's like, they're dead because you tipped off your death squad. You know, and they call them death squad.
No. The confrontation was specifically about the fact that he lied to her about having killed the chemist back at the whole murder investigation that frames that story. It's not really about the fact that Kira mailed the list off and all those people got killed. That actually seemed to be, I don't want to say it was accident. It was never really addressed in the confrontation.
I believe it is. And that's why I took such a big issue with it. Like, I get Odo not having major beef with it because it was before their friendship and before she was an officer on the station. But I think the episode was very explicit that she gave that list of cooperators to death squads to go in and kill before Odo had a chance to interview those people and try and figure out what's going on. Like, that's where the major betrayal happens there. And this is obviously something that she is still very keen on, because later in the episode, when she goes to Quark in Odo's absence and is like, hey, motherfucker, we caught your cousin trying to sneak on the station and he slipped away before we had a chance to get him. And we know something's up. Just because Odo's not here doesn't mean my eyes aren't on you.
In fact, I hate you more. Like, you and Odo got this weird sort of like frenemies thing going. I don't like you. You collaborated with the Cardassians. I despise you.
You're a collaborator. I despise you. And the last time I had access to collaborators, I sent death squads to go kill them in their homes.
I think you are making that leap alone. There's nothing in the episode that suggests Kira does that. It happens.
I'm going to tell you right now, you are flirting with an opportunity where you're going to be forced to watch Faith of the Heart. Don't think for a fucking minute.
You know what? Call the Chadish.
Don't think for a fucking minute just because we're in Deep Space Nine.
I am correct. Kira does not send death squads. I demand his judgment. If you want to invoke Faith of the Heart, you want to invoke the Chadish, then he must weigh in. He must weigh in.
You're going to knock off Rod Stewart heaven. So fucking strap yourself in there, boyo.
I think it is you who are going to have a terrible experience with knockoff Rod Stewart. I think you are going to, your heart will be stirred by his dulcet tones.
You're going to be watching that shit, and I'm going to watch the good version from the Mirror Universe one just to flex. So, Dr. Jack, you are being summoned to go back and watch the tail end of Tarek Nor, where Odo confronts
Necessary
Kira.
Evil was the name of that episode.
Was that?
Yeah. Necessary Evil was the name of that episode.
Yeah.
Tarek Nor is actually a different episode name, I think, in the future, but yeah.
Was it Necessary Evil?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So, you got to go and watch that and see the part where Odo's like, you sent people to kill a dude that is part of my investigation. He doesn't say, hey, you betrayed your fucking office and your loyalty to the station and me as a friend, but he should have. So go find that Joe's wrong and send him to Rod Stewart help.
Yes, please confirm that I'm correct and then make Peter eat his words. Yes.
But Quark has some shenanigans. Quark's an opportunist. Mm-hmm. If there's a plasma storm coming in and the entire station has to vacate, that's when he's going to have his Klingons coming to do whatever dirty code cylinder deal they're going to do. Odo's gone, hey, cousin, come bring your bone shavings that you've stolen from the museum to me.
From a Cardassian museum, too. You'd think she wouldn't give a fuck. Like,
what if
stealing from the Cardassians and you want to like trade in their artifacts? Oh, okay, sure. It might make them mad.
This is happening frequently where he has to have people come to the station to do the in-person part of the deal. Like, what if he just had a shuttle and he just flew out half an hour away from the station, did his dirty deal, docked, and then flew back in instead of bringing everybody into this petri dish where he is under a microscope?
What a capital idea. You're correct. Like, yes, you should probably be doing your illegal actions on an offshore runabout. Like
Mm.
where you can gamble. When you're on a cruise ship, same thing, right?
He needs to get access to Admiral So-and-so's gambling Excelsior
Oh
payment.
yeah, his floating craps game that's for the Federation. Yeah.
So that's the setup for this B plot is Kira is hyper vigilant and she's going to have to be dealt with somehow if Quark's to do his dirt.
The way that Quark decides to deal with Kira is, I'm going to take somebody who has a gambling debt and have that person who has connection to Vedic Barile, whom apparently everyone knows Kira is sweet on, to come to the station. And so that's where that plot comes from, is I know how to make it so that Kira isn't going to be on my shit and I can do dirty deals for bone chips with my cousin. I'm going to get her fucking laid, which, let's face it,
She needs.
as far as plans to distract someone is concerned, that's a pleasant one. Like,
Has
I'm not
Odo
gonna have a problem. I'm gonna get you dicked, girl. Let's go.
has Quark just found it to become like life is too easy on the station? He is intentionally making his own life harder to like as a point of pride. Like he's playing on hard mode.
Is
Because
that something you personally do? I mean, you can identify with that.
if you've got the juice to call someone up to the station that can bring a bishop
Yeah.
from the surface, you're telling me you don't have the juice to catch a taxi down to Bajor and go in some guy's garage while your cousin sells you bone chips outside of the vigilant eye of the shapeshifter that has a kink for putting you in handcuffs?
Yes. Yeah. 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 You're right. Like, it's just, life is too easy if there's not enough challenge. There's no texture to it. I am going to solve this by pulling the most ridiculous influence
Rube
caper I
Goldberg.
possibly can.
So that's what's going on there. And then, as you pointed out, there's the C plot, which is holdover from
Last week, actually.
last week, and that's where Cisco started asking Miles O'Brien, "Can you tutor my son in mechanical aptitude because I want to get him looking good for the Starfleet entrance exam?"
Correct, because he had a low proficiency in mechanical engineering, which we see reflected here. Jake is actually pretty bad at it. That's
Not only
legitimately
mechanical engineering, he's bad with colors. Color matching is a hard point for him. He's like, "Hey, well, why do I get a job? You know, do you want to tell me that space money's real?" And he's like, "No, we're talking about character and building integrity." He's like, "Your friend Nog has a job, right?" He's like, "Okay, well, I'm banging all those Dabo girls anyways. Like, maybe I'll go work over there." And Cisco looks like,
No. I don't want you working next to the machines that make sex fantasies real. That's not good for a 15-year-old. We're going to keep you away from that.
"Yeah, you're going to work next to the machines that sometimes malfunction and make us all forget how to talk."
And sometimes we're booby trapped by Cardassian terrorists. Yes.
Bajoran terrorists.
Sometimes both. Can't be both.
Jake says, "All right, I'll give it a try." And that's all Cisco. This is another excellent entry into the Cisco's a great dad story here.
Agreed. Even though this is maybe 5 to 6 minutes of the episode, really, it's basically 3 scenes. He has a conversation with Jake. Jake has a conversation with Miles. Jake has a conversation with his dad again. That's it. That's the whole plot.
You like
It's probably the 3 best scenes in the episode.
probably you like O'Brien. What do you give me pushback for? Yeah, but listen, Dad, like he's dead every other week, and sometimes he is a murder bot, murder replicant, murder clone. This guy's bad luck, Dad. I like him. He's made to suffer, and the people around him will suffer too. I don't know if I want to be a part of that while I'm wearing skin tight spandex. Dad, do you think that's a good idea? And he's like, "Yes, you're doing this job." He's like, "All right."
Didn't one of Chief O'Brien's coworkers get incinerated by a plasma beam because some crazy Bajoran terrorist wanted to kill Vedic Barile, who's on the station right now?
You're right, Jake. He did. But let me show you a picture of her again, and you're telling me you don't want to work next to that. I see what you mean, Dad. I'll try. Good, son. I don't know. So that plot, let's just knock that one out real quick.
Yeah.
He is a klutz. He does not know what colors are. We get some cool station engineering. The cologne samples that we've been seeing Quark pull out of his junk drawer to hack the security console behind the bar, the point of sale system they use for bar drinks. Those are isolinear rods, not chips, rods, which I guess isolinear is a popular technology across the alpha beta quadrant. If the Cardassians were using it, I doubt that's Federation overhaul.
Isolinear, I believe, is supposed to be a technobabble term for a style of computing. So like it's the successor of Deutronic. So because this is Cardassian territory, obviously they don't use chips, they use rods instead because their design principles are different. But the idea here is that it's functioning on relatively similar technology, which is why they can bridge the gap with.
Little known fact, I'm going to drop on you right now. Isolinear rods cannot get the flu from cheese.
That's true. That does make them potentially a superior technology.
Yeah. Much healthier.
You know how charming it was when we were watching Phage as part of V'ger Revisited last week, and it was the first episode with the Trehobo trash can fires.
Really?
Yes, that is the episode where in the prelude, she like walks into her dining room and it's filled with the full blast hobo trash can fires in all of their glory, as he makes the most disgusting looking food you've ever seen.
Was it fun seeing Ethan Phillips as Phlox? Not Phlox, as Neelix?
It was, in the sense that he is it was season 1, and so it gave us like this opportunity to appreciate that season 1 Neelix really was pretty terrible in terms of his likability. Not that Ethan Phillips wasn't going all in. He was. But in Phage, we got a lot of mileage of laughing at the way they structured what should have been Neelix laying there without his lungs, having this heartfelt conversation with Kes about how he's having this brush with mortality and uselessness and death. And then it just comes off as buffoonishly cartoonish because that's how he's being told to play the character. Even though this is clearly written probably to be a heartfelt scene, it just reads as like parody of a heartfelt scene, like on purpose. And it's an accidental masterpiece of comedy in the middle of this episode. And it's all because Ethan Phillips is going whole hog on being snarf snarf.
I can't tell if they started writing him a little bit better or he was just like, I'm going to play this character to have a good time and just laugh and make the crew laugh. And we're just going to have fun with it. I remember also out of the Phage, the strong point was like Chakotay, like, okay, stay here. And then Chakotay walks away and then he just immediately goes off to get his lungs mugged.
He gets told to come back and then ignores it. And that's how he gets his lungs mugged. So
get insulin in the Delta quadrant and you get your lungs stolen. So these are rods. You understand this? I'm having a hard time with this, Chief. My heart's just not in this, and I'm going to confide in you before I tell my father, like, I don't think I'm feeling Starfleet. And Brian's like, well, you can't go by what your dad wants. I was supposed to be a cello player. Little did my father know that I would go on to become a mass murderer or a war hero, depending how you look at things.
Depending on what side of the murder you were on.
Mm-hmm. Instead of being full of orchestral performances, I'm now full of PTSD. I seem to recall like bullshit background stuff in Next Gen, like him up on like the little quartets or whatever with Data in 10 Forward, right?
Yes. While serving aboard the USS Enterprise D, O'Brien would occasionally play cello with his fellow crew in 10 Forward, and this was specifically in the Ensigns of Command in Season 3.
First of all, pat on my back.
Yep, you recalled that correctly.
Pat on Robert Hewitt Wolf's back for deep diving a character like that. What else has this guy done? To take some throwaway bullshit scene out of a Next Gen episode where he's not even talking. He's just in the background and being like, cool, that was going to be what he was going to be. And instead he is super janitor murder guy.
He has one TNG episode, A
Tell me
Fistful of
it's that one.
Betas.
Oh, ooh.
Listen, that wouldn't put Mirna Sirtis in those leather pants. I'm never going to say it's bad. And then 37 episodes of Deep Space Nine. So he's a Deep Space Nine guy.
Q list.
Pretty solidly. And he's got some good ones, like The Wire, and The Collaborator, and The Search, Past Tense, Second Skin, Way of the Warrior. Yeah, this guy fucks. This guy's good at his job. He writes the good stuff.
Right off the bat, this isn't right off the bat. He's got Q-list, The Passenger, Hands of the Prophets, Invasive Procedures, which was the Ops of Rage, Second Sight. So, again, to the quality of Deep Space Nine and the quality of the people that they're letting touch the property, unlike fucking Voyager, people's familiarity with these characters, bringing interesting stuff in. Anyways, I was supposed to be a cello player. You got to follow your heart. I joined Starfleet despite my dad. You can do it too. So the final scene between these two will be Jake confiding into Cisco that, hey, I don't want to be Starfleet, and I don't know what I want to do yet, but Starfleet feels too much like you, and I got to find my own way. And Avery Brooks drops this line on him and says, the one thing I want, or the thing I want the most in life is for you to find something you love and become,
then do it the best you can.
Which, that's great advice. I know. Can you say that you're living your best Federation life, Joe?
Find something you love and then do it the best you can. You know what? Close enough. I didn't do it. Did I get on 100% on the mark? No. But am I like in the yellow? Yes.
Close enough for capitalism.
Close enough for government work might be specifically correct.
I mean, it's not good enough for a post-scarcity utopia, but for where we're at as far as health insurance, it's not bad.
It's not bad. And then I guess if we're going to wrap up the side plots, let's wrap up the Kira Vedic Brile thing. These two don't have chemistry. They have whatever the opposite of fucking chemistry is.
That would be the opposite of chemistry is Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres.
Good question. Is this better than Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres? I would say no.
I would say that is probably the worst on-screen kiss I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like,
if you told me
start mauling each other. like it's like it was so sudden and so way more than it was necessary for the moment. It was like they didn't. I wonder if that was like their fifth or sixth take or something, and they just were like, let's try to get this done. We're done. We're tired of making out with each other. Neither of us are feeling this. This isn't fun.
The only way that kiss makes sense to me is if the guy playing Vedic Brile is Nana Vister's brother. That kiss has the passion of a brother and sister that are not Lannisters and are respecting the law of nature. So this guy shows up. He is going to be giving a sermon or something, but really he's there because he wants to pursue Kira, who he has already disclosed that the Tears of the Prophet hallucination cubes have given him visions basically romantic with her. She's had the same thing, but she has not disclosed that to him. And she's into him, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have vanquished the Circle, and the threat of Vedic win is still on the horizon, but this guy's looking good. He wants to do everything other than be religious up there. And they have a little talk, and we find out, hey, I'm into sports ball. You're into sports ball too. let's just go play sports ball up in the Hollow Suites. And then they end up eating a replicator cooked meal. And as they're cleaning up the dishes, the kissing.
Suddenly a makeout begins. Just out of nowhere, we make sex eye, and we're gonna start having the most awkward dialogue conversation while I passionately rub my face and lips on you.
It is jarring how out of place the dialogue is in this, because they start kissing and the guy does not shut the fuck up. And I stopped. I said, is he playing her? Because like the story is, I'm friends with the guy that owes Quark money.
Right. And they have to get to that revelation getting to Kira, but they have like 5 lines of dialogue that this guy has to deliver while, quote, making out with Kira, end quote. And it comes off as very weird and statico and not correct.
My read on that, as they're kissing and he's talking about his friend's fucking gambling debt while they're holding dirty dishes between them instead of like passionately embracing. I thought Kira's going to cut him short and be like, what's happening here? Is this a big ploy to somehow get me romantically caring about you so I'll go and make Quark forgive your friend's debts? Am I getting played? Am I a mark? Like, that's my feeling through this, to the point that this guy would be willing to talk about his buddy's gambling debts while making out with this lady that he's had the hots for like a season now.
I think that in this case, because Kira is so, I'm going to say because she's so religious, like, which it's just strange to think that Kira's supposed to be super religious and she's in the middle of making out with the man who's going to be the next Pope of Bajor, or at least everyone thinks is going to be the next Pope of Bajor, right? So, but anyway, I don't think she would actually think Vedic Bareil was playing her. Like, I think it's correct.
I thought he would. Like, that's how stilted and goofy that was. How bad the delivery was. I mean, it just seemed like the point in an episode where someone's like doesn't play their hand right and botches the con. But it's legit story bridging that's happening. She stops, and I'm even remiss to call it a makeout session. They stop rubbing their lips, because that's all that's happening.
From their faces on each other. Yeah.
Let's say rubbing their smiles, because I think they both have their teeth clenched, so absolutely no tongue can touch. And she goes, hold on a second. Let me get my air quotes. As attracted to you as I am, my hate boner for Quark has now popped. And I'm going to stop what we're doing here so I can run over to the space gambling bar and beat this guy's ass for daring to have the audacity to try to manipulate me. Oh, no, she doesn't run to the bar. She runs, I guess, to her desk to go look for his cousin, because the con here is, again, to distract her so this guy can get in. And then they bust him too early before he has a chance to go and be by Quark. This plot's a mess. Like, she could have caught Quark dead to rights, especially after he tried to play her. Like, she has all the motivation to ruin him.
How about it would have been so much better if she had just quietly acknowledged that she decided to catch him too early because she wanted to pay Quark back for getting her laid. You know, like, just some small additional, like, you know, because it builds on the first scene of I hate you, I despise you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, Quark kind of accidentally does this huge favor for her, and she's like, yeah, you know what? I don't despise you anymore. I'm going to let you just a little bit off the hook today. I caught your cousin before he could do crimes with you, rather than catching him doing crimes with you. How about that? Thanks, Quark. Do appreciate it.
You know, I don't love it, but what you've just done is highlighted it. Any other way you could have played this thing out would have been better than the goofy way they actually deploy it. So I'm glad that we get to see Vedic Bareil a little bit, but this thing's a fucking mess. Also, why is Mr. Religious Gardener guy hanging out with gambling addicts?
He does bring up that it is quite a scandal that the guy's got gambling debts. But
That's you're going for Space Pope, and this is the guy you're catching rides up to Deep Sheets 9 with? You're like, hey man, I hear they got great chicken parm sandwiches up there. Can I catch a ride with you? I see you
so,
scratching your neck and clearly going through some sort of withdrawal of addiction. You're
so we're
not going.
41 minutes into this podcast, and we have talked the minimum that we possibly can about the A plot. And that's probably because there's just not much to talk about. In fact, nothing really happens.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
Technically, what is there is terrible cost. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Describe this alien race.
Bad.
If you are the writer and you're going to Rick Berman or whoever, hey, okay, so who are the aliens here? Because we've had some real duds this season. There's the chickenpox people from the immigration episode. We've got the bondage clowns. They did not go over well. Everybody remembers the gambling hillbillies, the Joe Dirt people. I need a good alien group. What are you cooking here, man? Mr. Wolf, Robert Hewitt Wolf, tell me your boss. What's the alien race we're dealing with here? Give me the elevator pitch.
Okay. Here's the pitch. Here it is. How about old people in white smocks who went to Mardi Gras, but a boring Mardi Gras?
What kind of white people? Like good-looking white people?
No, ugliest white people you have. Give me all. I want your ugliest children. I want your ugliest old people. I want the ugliest white people you have available to you.
They're
I'm going
running
to
a
put them
discount.
in sackcloths, and I'm going to have just a lot of beads on them. But not like flashy beads or fun beads, just like gray beads. They're going to be bead people.
Well, they're running a discount right now on white people at the actor store. It's buy one old fat guy and get another old fat white guy for free.
What a fantastic deal. Boy, they really made use of that one.
I feel like these guys are supposed to be like bohemian potheads, maybe. But all of the guys acting in this, first of all, feel like they've never seen a single episode of anything science fiction. I think all of them would have been perfectly at home in an episode of the Andy Griffith Show.
Or like, I don't know.
They're all like
a Western, you know, just like a random like Gunsmoke episode. This could be it.
Slow Southern drawl. He calls them holograms, which technically not wrong, especially when you're dealing with Quark's versions, right? Like the whole becomes a very important part of any photonic being's anatomy. He calls Dax Dex, and they let it go, which tells me there was a lot of mistakes. Like these guys are not ready for sci-fi at all. And they got him like these, maybe they were like painting a house or something, just sloppy white Michelin Man suits.
Like the idea of like this is a painter crew they hired to play these guys.
And every time you paint a house, you get a new bead. And these guys are very old, so they've got a lot of beads.
So Dax and Odo find the energy source. They decide to beam down to it. When they beam down to it, it's a village. Dax is like, I'm going to investigate this village. The local police officer, who, I don't know, looked up his IMDb, the most notable thing is he played the Nazi playwright in The Producers, shows up and like points the one gun in the entire establishment at him and is like, hey, stop it. I've got you. I'm the cop.
He doesn't even say, hey, stop it. He just pulls a gun and looks at him, while Odo looks over as an alien painting crew chief is brandishing a pistol. He doesn't like throw a blob or like turn his hand in a knife or do some cool venom goo shit. He just stands there and lets her keep fucking around at risk of getting shot in the back while he makes a smarmy comment, which is on brand for Odo, I guess. But
yeah. And then they also break the fuck out of the Prime Directive because they have no reason to believe these people are warp capable in any way, shape, or form. And they're just like, yeah, let me demonstrate my magical technology to you. I am now beaming back to my ship. I'm now beaming back. Look at me. I can disappear and reappear at will.
Which he seems the sheriff guy, Hobo Joe, Old Joe. Let's call him Old Joe. You're guilty, and I'm putting too much. Well, I think you're guilty. I mean, I've
There
lost
you go. That's the right energy.
20 people, and you know, you're the only thing that could. Well, we're not guilty, and we can promise, and all this, and also, if we were guilty, we wouldn't even be here. I'm going to do a flex. I'm going to beam out. I'm going to beam back in, and he looks like he saw a ghost. Oh my god, how crazy! What was that fantastic technology? 2 scenes later, well, hey, we're helping you on your investigation now. You didn't scan for transporter use. Oh, that was the first thing I did. Well, what the fuck? You know what transporters are?
Did you write this scene before or after the last one? What order did you shoot this in? It's like, did you know that was going to be a plot point when you made this scene? Yeah, it's
Woof.
just it's a wolf all around in the A plot. You have actors who don't know what they're doing. They don't really know. They're not really caring about how they're acting.
Isn't this
There's no
too
stakes. Like from right off the rip, there are no stakes whatsoever. It's like, what's happening to these people? Doesn't seem all that sinister or interesting, nor is it threat. We know it's not threatening to the 2 main characters that are there, so your stakes are low.
Is
And
it
then
threatening to the station or Starfleet's interest? Because you've got number 3 for the station and the chief of security, who loves his fucking job, by the way, very driven guy. If he's using PTO and this is a vacation that they're taking, sure, I get them doing a fun Scooby-Doo mystery mission. But if they're on the clock and they're spending 2 days fucking around the city that has no mission really associated with it, I mean, they've solved the mission. Here's the fucking thing. It's coming off a generator. Let's go home. No, let's solve the Scooby-Doo mission of the disappearing villagers. Also, isn't this like 2 episodes in a row now where Federation technology is being blocked by a mysterious field?
yeah, kind of. It's not really being blocked this time though.
What
It's
was the
just a
last episode?
mysterious field they're investigating. You know,
Was
it's a little bit easy. A little
was
bit
the
easier on them this time.
was the last episode the plantation episode?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's 2 in a row that there's like the machine blocking the Federation technology from working. You've got the little girl who instantly I was like, okay, she's from that episode of like the imaginary friend in Next Gen, Isabella, who's like the malicious space demon thing, which didn't her mom die on an away team mission?
I think so.
So that's
Yeah,
like
you remember TNG episodes better than me, to be honest.
that's like both of her Star Trek appearances are based around where's my mommy? Is my mommy dead?
I guess.
Are
I
there
guess
imaginary beings at play? I thought she did a nice job for being a child actor. And I thought that the dialogue that she gets with Odo is good. And for the number of times he's had a lynch mob at his door trying to kill him and other him, it's nice seeing him get acceptance from an innocent.
Okay. I mean, I'm usually a little bit more generous towards the child actors than you, and I thought she was just kind of forgettable. But to the degree she draws out Renee Abenjero's playing Odo and gets him to engage in what his character needs to be engaging in, which is really the only part of this that's has any weight to it, right? Like nothing in this plot happens, nothing in this plot matters except specifically that Odo grows some feelings and like learns how to interact with people, which is ironic because they're not people. But like that's actually where the growth happens. Is he ends up when the deception's figured out of like why are people disappearing? It's because they're holograms and the matrix that is maintaining this is malfunctioning and it needs to be taken offline and then brought back online after some repairs. We get the revelation that the really old guy is in fact the only real one. And the plot really hinges on Odo being able to connect with this guy and convince him that these people were real. And really that sentiment comes specifically from his experiences interaction with the little girl. So to the extent that the little girl was the vehicle by which Odo is then led to be able to make an effective emotional argument to another human, thus sort of closing the loop on his inability to read people's emotional states effectively as it relates to interpersonal relationships, like Dax said in the prelude, Yeah, it was fine, but I think as an actress, I mean, she was just like every other kid actor I could have
No, she's not like that. Every other kid actor makes me want to bang my head against a wall and fast
except the
forward.
guy who
See,
played young Trip in
he's
Similitude.
great, and there's a couple other good ones out there. And I'm not saying she's the greatest, but I'm saying she didn't make me want to put my pen in my eye, and that's a real fucking accomplishment. I'm willing to
Fair
show.
enough. For you, that's a B plus for you.
Couple notes I want to touch on here real quick. First of all, I did like that Kira Nerys deputizes Bashir
Yeah, and he
to
gets all horny
spy.
for it. It's like, oh, Garrick's been teaching me to fucking spy on people. I'm gonna go do that shit.
Great Garrick call out, and I believe it 100%, especially after all the stuff from the orphanage episode.
Oh yeah.
The little girl she corrects him. He's like, oh, I'm a shapeshifter. And she goes, oh, you mean a changeling? And it doesn't like dawn. I'm like, oh, what is this? Because have they called him a changeling yet?
No, this is the first time it's mentioned, and it's like if this plot has
Right over
anything
his
to give
fucking
you,
head.
yeah,
Right over his head. If you were a changeling, you could turn. Changelings aren't real. They're figments. Like they're this mysterious boogeyman. Oh no, I'm real. I'm a changeling. Prove it. No, prove it. No. I am not allowed to use those powers. They are expensive special effects, and we're going to save it to the end when I turn into a top. As they're walking around looking for the mom and exploring the perimeter, because like no one's ever left the valley because realistically, it's in our program or Westworld it into sticking around because we'll fucking
right.
dissipate if we go outside of bounds. Can Odo shapeshift into a bird if he wanted? Could he just turn into a fucking hawk and just surveil the shit out of that like really great?
Not only can he does it in the future. Just turns
Okay.
into a bird. Flies.
Just didn't want to leave Dax alone with these boring bohemians.
Well, also, shout out to the boring bohemians who find out they're a bunch of holograms and are like, that's fine.
They're so fucking high. This whole thing is ridiculous. Okay, so she sticks her hand out. She disappears. They're like, oh shit. I needed the scene where they're going to have their Starfleet moral dilemma where they have to sit in the conference room and talk about like, okay, we've got no reason for being here. We've got no orders or anything else. And we're just fucking around trying to help these people because we have now found out they are all holograms. This is a big game of The Sims.
Somebody left the computer going, and this game of Sims gained sentience and started making children.
Is it cruel of us to tell everyone that, hey, by the way, this is the 13th floor, and you're all fake? None of you have souls. I don't know what your religion is here, but the only place you're going is the fucking recycling bin on a Windows desktop. Your mommy's fake and you're fake, and none like what are the pros and cons? Is it our right? None of that.
They're just like,
hey Joe, come here. Hey, Sheriff Joe. I'm sorry to use Billy. Sheriff Bill.
no, it's fine. You can be Sheriff Joe. It's fine.
I think I need something rustic.
Zaya.
Give me a Gunsmoke name or Ponderosa. Was his name Hoss? Hall? Hog?
Yeah, Sheriff Hall. Sure.
Sheriff Hall, come over here. Well, what's going on? You're fake. This is a fucking computer. You see this thing buzzing real loud over here? That's your brain. And you guys are being deleted.
Yeah, I gotta take that 1660 out and put in a nice like 5080. You need an upgrade.
What do you mean? Get everybody on the edge of the fucking thing, and we're going to give you guys undeniable proof that you are living in hell. And if you go beyond the edges of your programming, you will disappear. All right, let's do it. Now we've got an angry mob of holograms. By the way, we're not going to stop and check if there's any sort of safety protocols here. If you guys are going to go fucking ape shit and start squeezing people's hearts.
Instead, they tell them that they're all hollow people, and they're like, wow, we fix us?
Well, that's...
And then
we don't believe you.
Off,
we don't believe you. Not like, oh my God, this sucks. I'm having an existential crisis. Just, we got to turn you off. All right, well, turn us off and see if you can fix us and turn us back on.
And they turn it back on and they're like, damn, that worked.
They turned it
Thanks.
off.
Come by anytime. Hey, wonder who made us. Like,
They turned it
I don't
off.
know. Did a good job. All right, cool.
The village
Bye.
elder, the oldest village elder, who's been real chill about this whole thing, which should stand out like a sore thumb, but everybody else is so real chill about everything else that, like, that's just par for the course. Kevin Uxbridge, Renee Abajeros out of Enterprise, like, oh, yeah. Here's the real meat and potatoes of this episode. The Dominion came to town. They were ruthless. Fucking life sucked. I
So
ran away with this big holodeck and I made my own life free of their oppression, where I'm living in a fantasy playing The Sims.
and it links nicely back to the idea that because these are people who are recreations of the people he knew, that they knew what changelings were, right? That there was a
Yeah.
myth about them in
Yeah.
their culture that it's still present because that's who they are, right? So this little girl relates the story of this changeling and everything else, and well, that's all true, right? Like that, there's element to truth to that, and it's rooted in whatever this Dominion thing is, and you kind of get that look between Odo and Dax. Like I'm hearing that fucking word a little bit too much, and I never hear anything good.
Hey, while we got you here and there's no sort of Damocles whatsoever hanging over our head, can you tell us about this Dominion? We've been hearing it like 3 times. And you're like the second person we've talked to that had to run away from the Dominion. Like, what's the deal? Also, your granddaughter said changeling. Does that mean anything to you? Since we're putting 2 days of fucking Starfleet effort in here, can we get something out of this other than feeling a little bit better about helping an old man out? He's like, all right, you turned it off. Well, that was fun. Can you take me back to my oppressed planet so I can reconnect with the other people that I know, because I'm dying from God knows what. Maybe your Federation technology could have healed me, but we're not going to talk about that. You're content to let me die just like SciTech. And they're like, well, we can't do that. There's a moral dilemma here we need to now discuss. Not was telling the holograms they're holograms cruel, but leaving them turned off. And this is a very interesting part of the episode for me, because Odo especially comes out of the gate like these are real people with real feelings, and it doesn't matter if they were initially programs, they've evolved, and there's a moral imperative to bring them back, because I saw the way you held that little girl's hand and she really sweet talked me and made me feel like a great guy. We cannot leave them turned off. These are people. And Dax is just said like, yup. And then you flip over to Voyager and Janeway's outlook, where we had 16 episodes of her refusing to give the EMH even this much humanity until the very end, where she would come to find the error of her ways and embrace him as a person, only to promptly forget about it again.
And then remember, well, I mean, this was the Voyager trope, right? Like every lesson these characters learn, they have to learn 6 or 7 times because you just keep having them learn it over and over. Like B'Elanna in particular had to suffer from that all the time.
But there was a very clear Federation understanding that holograms are not people.
Yes. And
And
that was very much in Janeway's personality. It made sense for her. She didn't think Tuvix was people, right? Like, let alone fucking the EMH.
Yeah.
So, she's just more ruthless when it comes to that. But Dax
I
is
think racist is the word you're looking for.
that too. Star Trek is a very racist world. Someone did a 3-minute supercut of all the times people are racist on Star Trek. Not like,
The
racist in
bad
our
guy.
sense, but yeah, but like Tom Paris pointing out, like in that prison episode of maybe they commit more crimes, like
Yeah.
shit like that. Like
Space
talking
Texas.
about Ferengi like being warned about them at the academy when Harry Kim's there, like all that.
So seeing them super instantly ride or die, and again, back to like, we're going to ruin these people's lives potentially. No discussion into that, but heavy discussion of, are holograms real? Well, if you believe in their feelings and all that other shit to that degree, like maybe you shouldn't have fucking spoiled all of them. And there was another, was it the Enterprise episode where like, we can't tell these people they're fake, we just want to let them live in ignorance? Because this has come up many times in Star Trek. Here is the artificial person that is living with misconceptions about their own state of existence. Data's mom specifically.
Data's mom, the Kevin Uxbridge episode, just on and on they go. This is a lovely trope they love going back to.
Well, this one, there's no, like I said, there's no discussion. It's that. They convince the guy that, hey, your creations, which also ridiculous that he would just be like, yeah, leave him off, take me home. That was fun. I'm done playing with him. Like, bro, that you've been here how many years? 20?
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, just stick this one out, bro. just stick with it, man. You're invested. Just stay with it.
No. Delete the village.
But yeah, it wraps up after the heartfelt speech. They get it fixed. Everyone's cool. And then Odo turns into a top and leaves. And that's the episode. So really the B and C plots are the more interesting things that are happening here. The things that actually have consequences in the future that are a little bit more tangible. But yeah, the big problem here is the A plot is boring. It is staffed with actors who don't seem to know what the fuck they're doing. And it just makes the thing come off as very generic mid Star Trek, which, let's be real, we're kind of spoiled right now. If we'd gotten the episode of the quality of Shadowplay and the dark times of, season 6 of Voyager or season 2 of Enterprise, we would have loved it. But for this is bottom half of the territory. It's just not doing much.
Yeah, and to that end, I would call this a meh.
Yeah.
Paradise was...
I called that good. I think you were meh on it.
I'm going to meh that. Whispers was him going crazy. That was good.
Yes.
Armageddon game, those are space elves of chemical warfare. That was a good one. The alternate. What was was it Sanctuary? Is that the one with the chicken?
Sanctuary was the one with the asylum seekers.
Terrible. I think that's going to be my vote for the worst episode of the season. Just because they were so miserable and that was actively a difficult episode to get through. But there's been a couple... I think there's been more duds in this season so far than season 1 had.
Yeah, because you think about like invasive procedures aside from the Ops of Rage moment, pretty shit. Melora kind of shrug your shoulders at. But we forget. We've had 3 episodes at the beginning of the season that were total bangers.
Yep. Rules of Acquisition I loved.
Fantastic.
I'm not saying there's not great shit here. Rivals was another like meh. I would be surprised if Rivals wasn't your pick for worst. Like you were very harsh on that.
I did not like it.
The fact that Rivals is beating out Sanctuary, I look forward to debating that with you in the rip. But yeah, there's been some turkeys in here.
And and the thing is though, just like season 1, season 2 is just, it hits a point and then it's just like, we're just going to have only bangers from this point forward. So we've got one more kind of like weirdo mid here, and then it's Prophet and Lost Blood Oath, Marquee Part 1 and 2, The Wire crossover, The Collaborator, Tribunal, The Jem'Hadar. Like all of those are good. So be prepared. But before we get to that, what do we have next week?
We're going to be playing God. We just went from playing Sims, which is effectively playing God, to playing God. While hosting her first Trill initiate, Dax discovers a tiny, expanding proto-universe that threatens to destroy the Bajoran system. Wasn't this the plot of Men in Black?
Kind of, I think.
The cat collar was a proto-universe,
right? Or something, yeah. Yeah. It was, or some sort of key to something. Yeah, it was the MacGuffin. I guess we'll have
While hosting her first Trill initiate. What is that?
Trills that are competing to become joined. So
we got like a symbiote intern.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And we will have all of you out there as our unpaid interns listening to us here at Future Please next week. We appreciate it. See you then.